right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? All right. So thank you all for joining and really excited for this event. So I think it was last spring when Dean Prabhudev Konana called me to his office, and I met Coach Locksley for the first time and Alana, and we sat with Joe Bailey, and we were kind of brainstorming how to get Coach involved and kind of contribute from his insights to our students. And following that meeting, that really the Dean Prabhudev actually started. We had the idea to involve him in co-teaching our leadership and a teamwork class for the MIM students. So I called up Sheetal, I remember, and I asked her, and she was like, "Of course, I'm so excited." And I'm so excited to co-develop and co-design this class around this. And this was the beginning of this wonderful journey. So this class was already offered in the fall, and now they're teaching another section. And I know the students are loving it. So the purpose of this event today is first to celebrate and to thank you, Coach Locksley, for your amazing generosity and what you give to our student. And also have a little bit of a conversation with both of you about how this has been going and what have you learned and students, and then open up for students' question. Sounds good?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds great. I'm going to, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to introduce them both, and then I will give Prabhudev the stage to also say a few words. So Michael Locksley returned home to become the University of Maryland's 37th head football coach in December 2018. Locksley, a Washington, D.C. native, has deep personal and professional connection to the area. The winner of the 2018 Broyles Award, given to the nation's top assistant coach, Locksley spent 3 years working under Nick Saban at the University of Alabama before taking the head coaching job at Maryland. He served as the Crimson Tide's co-offensive coordinator and won a national championship in 2017 before being promoted to offensive coordinator in 2018 and helping Alabama return to the college championship in 2017. To the college football playoff. Maryland has made major strides since Locksley took over the program. The Terps have posted back-to-back winning season in 2021-2022, a first for the football program since 2013-2014. Locksley has also guided Maryland to bowl wins in 2 consecutive years. For the first time, Maryland has accomplished the feat since winning the Peach Bowl and Gator Bowl nearly 20 years ago. Thank you. Dr. Sheetal Singh is an award-winning organizational psychologist, researcher, and author whose work bridges science, leadership, and organizational transformation. She is a trusted coach and advisor to CEOs, cabinet members, and heads of state, and founder of OTI Advisors, a growing organizational development advisory practice. As an associate clinical professor at Smith, she inspires future leaders with her research-driven yet practical approach to leadership, performance, and well-being. Dr. Singh earned her PhD in organizational behavior and strategy from the University of Maryland, and brings over a decade of leadership experience in the global hospitality industry with the Oberoi Group of hotels and resorts, and the Carlson Group. She was awarded the prestigious Rai Bahadur MS Oberoi Gold Medal for Excellence during her postgraduate diploma in hotel management from the Oberoi Center of Learning and Development in Delhi, India. She also serves as the mentor to graduate students in Cornell University's Leadership Development Program. Thank you, Sheetal. So now, Dean Konana to say a few words before we start the part.
30 seconds? Okay. Thanks, Rellie. Thanks, Coach, for being here. Thanks for partnering with us. This is fantastic. Beyond wins and losses, I'll tell you, college football it's a tough business. I use the word business because it's a business. It's very tough. Presidents fall when the football loses. That's the kind of pressure you have. Not just the coach, even the presidents can be fired when the football doesn't do well. That's the kind of pressure that deal. So which means we have got a lot to learn from how do you manage this intensity that exists? How do you lead under kind of pressure and dealing with 18-year-old kids? So I want to say something beyond football, because that's where I've seen your ESPN show, you and the story you went through, without saying too much. Those are inspiring. Actually, I was casually watching. I saw your name. I thought I got stuck, and I watched the entire episode. You reflect something beyond what sometimes we like to talk. The culture that you bring in. I think you're called the father type figure for all the players. It's not just you hire them. make them work hard so that you win. It's beyond that. He's a very huge mental health advocate, and you've taken that seriously, not just in the football, across the campus. So he brings some character and the culture that I think there's so much to learn in leadership. So thank you for being here, and thank you for partnering with our faculty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhudev. And this was the perfect introduction to my first question to Coach, because you talked about culture. So my first question was, in football, culture is everything. What are some specific ways you build a strong team culture with your players? And how can students apply those same ideas in classrooms, group projects, or later at the workplace?
Yeah, the development and building of culture is, culture is habits. And I'm a big believer that habits form behaviors. And so it's amazing that this question comes up, because part of our class last semester, as she was teaching the theory, I was actually living it, how to handle and manage conflict. Well, imagine being on a 4-game losing streak, going to teach a class and having to show and learn from her. So it's been more rewarding for me to be a part of it. And hearing the theories behind what I do. But I can tell you that this class has been great in that I've gotten more from it. And that I said this to, I think, Dean Cananan over there, when I said, as a mentor, you tend to get more from it yourself than the mentee does. And for me, developing and building culture, it starts with meeting people where they are. And I always use the analogy. I had 4 kids, and I know you mentioned losing. I lost a child in 2017. That's my son, Miko. But having 4 kids, I had the ability over the course of all their lives. The older 2 were raised under a dictatorship, a culture of you do it because I said so. And it wasn't a question of why, what, or how come. But then the younger 2, it felt like I was negotiating with terrorists, and I had to tell them why they had to do it and explain. And so what I learned from being a parent is what I learned in leadership and developing culture, is that you meet people where they are. And then once you meet where they are and that connection happens, culture's built from the connection of the why. Being really clear, communication skills. Those are all the things that, growing up in Washington, D.C., and I got a degree in business marketing. And so it really helps when people say you can recruit, when you understand why people buy things. And this is what this class has been for me. So developing culture to me starts with meeting the people that you're leading or the organization you're working in, meeting people where they are first, and then being very clear and concise as what the standards are. They can't be suggestions.
When I was watching Coach obviously teach the class, and then we had several assistant coaches and a lot of players come into class, talk about their experiences, I think I put it into a framework in terms of what Coach is doing. 3 things. I think he's shaping the culture by regular rituals that they follow, things that are repeated, what he called habits. The second thing, I saw everybody telling the same similar stories with similar themes. So the stories you tell shape the culture. And then finally, the third thing, the decisions you make. The decisions you make and the decisions you don't make as a leader. And again, everything had a very consistent theme about the decisions they were making. So the rituals, the stories, and the decisions, I think, is what it boiled down for this team. I learned so much from him as well.
It's just incredible to see here, like the theory and the practice just come together to life, which I think this whole class was about. But yeah, I love the point. Meeting people where they are, which I think we also do with our students, and the why question and purpose, and then be reflected in those artifacts, the ritual. Another question for you, Coach. What's the biggest misconception people have about leadership in sports, you would say?
Man, the biggest misconception of people have, I think winning is glorified so much in sport that sometimes you miss the lessons in the ones that don't win. And so I think kind of part of what I'm pretty good at finishing second a lot. But there's so many lessons to learn when you're finishing second, because I've been number 1 a few times under Coach Saban. And when you're number 1, sometimes those lessons get lost in the win. And I just think the misconception is that you have to win 6 national championships like Nick Saban to be a great leader. but there's some guys that have failed in their lives, and that the lessons that they've taken from those failures can be put in a model, and they become the head coach at the University of Maryland from Ballou High School in Southeast DC. You don't hope your way here. And so I think the biggest misconception is that there's still value in the lessons that come when you don't have success. And the only time failure is final is when you quit. So
I love his one-liners. He always says,
Learning from failure.
failure is never final. I think that's like a great title for his next book.
Yeah, yeah.
she wants to write my book. I may let her.
A book co-authored by both of you.
Yes.
Sheetal, tell us a little bit about the process of co-designing your leadership class and working with Coach on bringing the insights from the field. And what was the most insightful lesson you have gained from this process of co-designing the class?
So this was a great opportunity, honestly. I had inherited the original leadership course and I wanted to redesign it anyways. So when this opportunity came my way, I wanted to make sure that I'm making the best use of having Coach in this class. So we spent a lot of, had a few meetings, spent some time together over the summer, and I gave Coach some assignments, actually. I think Coach best describes that part of it as to how we co-designed it, right?
Yeah, she told me I had to write a book of my life. She said, you got 7 chapters, write your story. And, I grew up under the Nick Saban leadership where he talks about you'll tell your story when you're on the patio or porch on your rocking chair. Don't live your story now. So she kind of forced me into thinking through. And what I took from it was just how grateful I am, because until you look back a little bit, you don't realize what you've done. And she forced me to, even though I didn't really want to, but it really made the class authentic, because it really she shaped it based off of my 7, it was so tough to put all the things and all the failures I've had in the 7 chapters, but they've been very good because she's been able to put a theory behind some of the things that I've gone through or learned in my lessons of being around winning a national championship and losing a child. So the spectrum can go from the highest of highs of winning a national championship to burying a child in 2017.
So we started with 12 chapters in the beginning, and then I had to narrow it and combine themes. And then I had 7 very clear themes, which I thought now I'm going to work around it. And that's when I was like, okay, what can we bring that students will find valuable, applicable, and practical, where I can show them these frameworks and I can tell them what they can do in the corporate world. And then we have this learning from the real field. I call Coach, and he calls me Coach. So, we both have this coaching theme going, which is awesome. And students also practice coaching each other actually through the class, because one big part of leadership is literally living it one conversation at a time. So what we are hoping is what students will walk away with is being able to have those one-on-one conversations as a leader.
So what was your favorite theme out of this 7 chapter that you can name?
She cried in one of them.
Oh.
I'm a very emotional person, and I do resonate with emotions. I do think that the week that we talk about leading through failure and fear and anxiety, that is to me the closest to my heart. Also because I think I resonate with it. I also hear some very powerful student stories as we talk about that topic, and I think it gets very real. So that is definitely my favorite topic. Do you have one?
No, good. They're all mine. So they're all my stories. So
Yeah, and I love it that you're saying the students felt open enough to actually share, which goes back to your previous point about connecting with people where they are and them feeling emotionally safe enough to do so in the classroom. So it's quite powerful. So Sheetal, another question for you. You have a lot of expertise in the global hospitality industry. What parallels or complementarities you see between hospitality and sports?
It's all about the people. People are the product. And I think one thing I really learned a lot from hospitality, and which is what drove me to do my PhD also, is to understand human behavior. And if you, as a leader, can understand human behavior, you'll be a great leader. Yeah, both you have to work with people and mold them and shape them and lead them, and that's the product.
This is why I love organizational behavior as well. Coach Locksley, both of you coach, I know.
Coach.
Can you share a moment from coaching that completely changed the way you think about leadership or teamwork? Yeah.
Yeah, I probably think the most powerful story I've seen in teamwork is a story that and I'll give you the quick snapshot of it. It's a national championship game, and Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, and we're losing to Georgia. And at halftime, Nick Saban asked, "What do we need to do to get going on offense?" And I'm the co-coordinator. You got Brian Dable, who's the head coach of the Giants, was the coordinator, and I can remember saying to Coach, I said, I'd put Tua in the game because Jalen had been sick for a couple of weeks and had the flu, and Tua ended up practicing. And I saw the energy that Tua brought to our team when he was the quarterback with the receivers we had. And then we get in the game, and well, I can remember saying put Tua in to kind of jump starters. But I can remember going to meet with Jalen in his locker and saying, "Hey, Jalen, here's what's about to happen. We're ready to put Tua in." And, coach made the decision to put him in. And I said, but what you can't do is be on the sideline with the towel on your head down, because this kid supported you for 12 weeks as the starter when you were the starter. And one of the best things I ever saw was when Tua threw the winning touchdown pass to Smitty on that left side. Jalen was the first guy to run on the field and jump on Tua to celebrate winning a national championship. And here's a 20-year-old, 19-year-old kid teaching me some things in leadership and life about you can get kicked in the face at halftime, not be the guy, staying tall, and then 2 years later he's on the Heisman Trophy, finished second for it. He wins a Super Bowl. So just to see the things that you learn in sports, and to me, that's my biggest fear right now in this era, which is why I teach the class, is it gives me a chance to get back into the community of the school. And we're the marketing arm of the university as the football program, but we get a lot of things given to us because of NIL and the money we bring, and we hear a lot of that. But these kids have great stories that they can learn from playing this sport. Everybody's making it about the money, and I call that giving them a fish sandwich. My program and our football program here is teaching people how to fish, and that's what teaching this class is about, showing my players I'm modeling going to class and being prepared for it, and what the benefits of playing a game of football is bigger than the money and bigger than the game. And that's why I can do what I do.
Incredible. Thank you. Another question.
Everybody's pretty quiet. What's wrong? Woo! I'm like, sheesh. Sorry, I hope I ain't scare y'all. Montana.
Oh, we're going to open soon for questions, so hopefully they will not stay quiet. So football also deals with constant pressure and setbacks. How do you teach resilience and accountability, both in the field and also student? Then maybe you can also chime in for students, both of you, students.
I think we get judged. Our quarter is every Saturday, and in the business world, you guys have quarters. And every day I'm literally have a microphone in my face when I walk off the field, win, lose, or draw. And so you just manage your head on. The more you lead and the more experiences and the more failures you have, the quicker and you learn that it's a lesson. What's the lesson here? And for me, the media and the people that judge me in the program judge us based on the results of that. But I see I had 100% of my team give money back on Maryland Giving Day. 100% of these kids on the Maryland football team gave money back to the university, and that's teaching them how to fish. But nobody tells those stories. They just say, hey, they lost Saturday. They get too much money. And so I'm here to kind of amplify that. We're more than just football.
I love this also, again, the focus on not just the outcome of the game, the journey, the process. Sheetal, anything to?
So you asked about resilience, and I think one of the things I'm hoping we practice, at least in these classes. A lot of us are more resilient if we are very aware of who we are, what are we struggling with, what are our challenges, what are our fears. So I nudge students to bring those out as much as possible. And I'm hoping in that process, they're becoming more self-aware, and which will eventually lead to more resilience. And yeah, hopefully. And sometimes I do get emails from students 2 or 3 years later saying, hey, I miss you and I learned this from you and I've applied this that I learned. So, which then reassures me, okay, it wasn't, because sometimes you don't see the result.
Yeah, and
But
sometimes I guess it's hard for them in the short term, but in the long term, learning about those blind spots and knowing what to do about them is incredible. Another question to both of you. So how do you teach leadership to students or players who may not be the most visible or loudest or, extroverts? Or is it a myth that they need to be more? Do you teach it differently to people with different personalities?
Yeah, again, the part of it is the first thing I try to do is, and I had part of our first class was I had each student define leadership in their definition. Like, don't give me the book. And I shared with them what my definition of leadership was, and that each player on my team knows. If you ever ask me the definition of leadership, it's having a positive impact on others. That's what leadership is, and to me, and that's my personal goal. And so when we define it, it's what fits you, because some people are vocal leaders, some people lead by example. And so I think what you have to do as a leader is find out, and there's been a lot of Nick Saban disciples that have not had great success because you learn from Coach Saban the models, the theory, but you can't be Coach Saban. It has to fit your personality and who you are to your core. And I think, to me, that's the difference in being a leader and managing people is, one, defining what leadership is, and for you as the leader, but then also asking them to define it and then figuring out where they are with it. And some people you can put in the front of the room to lead, and some people lead by what they do every day. And I think it's important to recognize they all add value. And I can remember Coach Saban said, I asked him about putting a staff together, and he said it's like putting a puzzle together, that each person in the organization has a unique piece to the puzzle, and they aren't all the same shape, sizes. And so you putting that puzzle together, it's more important to getting to know the people you're putting in there than it is their skill set.
Yeah, I love this metaphor of the puzzle, of the complementarities, and what you're saying about staying authentic to who you are and not trying to just imitate someone else like style.
so we think of, like Coach said, we sometimes just read about great leaders, and we think of them as heroes. So we in a way glorify them, right? And so whenever we, especially young students who are just starting out, sometimes we look at these people and say, I don't measure up, so I'm not a leader. My goal in this class is to remind them that leadership is, just simply put, influence, and you're doing that literally every day. The conversations that you're having with your teammates or with your classmates, with your siblings, with your parents, everywhere you're making an influence and you're leading. And so that realization is actually, I think, empowering, and I'm hoping it's empowering. But that's the goal, at least I work with, to kind of demystifying the whole hero as a leader.
Yeah, and I think anyway, we know that many students suffer from the imposter syndrome and not thinking they're good enough. So you also speak to this point. I'll ask one last question, and then I'm happy to open up for everyone. So for both of you, if students leave your leadership and teamwork class remembering just one lesson or one thing, what would you hope this to be? So now condense the 7 chapters to one title of the book.
I guess that the first class then is one thing I would hope they would remember: to be authentic, to be themselves in every situation if they can. That's one thing. Yeah.
And I would say the story of my book, Failure Isn't Final. As a leader, that there are lessons and failures that, whether you leave it for the next generation to learn from or you use to fix the issue immediately, that the only time you really fail is when you stop trying. And to me, I've tried to, every part of my life, I think I've shown this class, from coaching to being a father to being a husband. They got to see all parts of it, whereas most people see Locks, the guy that's been 4-8 the last 2 years, that's on the hottest of hot seats. And you know what? I'm loving it. Looking forward to it. So
I want to open up.
Oprah Winfrey running around with the microphone.
Okay, so we've got two coaches. The world keeps changing. And one of the things that's impacted sports, the portal. So how do you deal with the portal? Because you mentioned you worked for legendary Nick Saban alongside on the field, but he didn't have to deal with the portal and you do. So thoughts on that going forward and how it's going to impact the sport?
Yeah, I think what I've said is the portal is my life. It's change. Football has been the same for 130 years, and then 2-3 years ago, it got flipped upside down, and it's no different than business. You either change, adjust, adapt, align, which to me is what I've had to do my whole life. So the variance of where football has gone, I kind of tried to anticipate. I'm one of those people that understands to leave and get out of Ballou High School to come to Maryland as the head coach. I got to be creative. And so when the portal started 5 years ago or 7 years ago, when I got on campus, I created a mentorship program with just in the football because I knew business was coming to football and I wanted to teach my guys business outside of just football. And so I took leaders from all over this DMV area where location, and I paired them with the best allies I have in my program, which is my players. And they've connected and made relationships with really powerful business leaders in this community that now serve as their mentors and being creative and impactful. So now I get a notch to where they don't want to leave because we have some wraparound services of things that happen when 3% of them go on to the next level. I also have now brought these businesses into, our fundraising efforts. And now our players are seeing what these guys are doing, giving back to them. And now 100% of my team gives back. They're learning philanthropy at a very early age. So all these things are the things that you have to do in this portal era. Embrace it. It's here. How can we get people to invest in Maryland football like they did Indiana football? I mean, it's not a surprise. I wanted to see it firsthand, and it's amazing. Duke won an ACC championship in football. They're the basketball school. Indiana won a national championship. There's a basketball school. Why can't Maryland? And I want everybody else to know that we can. I've got the same recipe that the 4 teams in the playoffs had that Nick Saban taught. We just need people to invest, buy in. The portal isn't that scary. You just got to have a plan.
Thank you.
Any other question? Can you say?
Let students go first.
Oh. Thank you.
Samson is one of our students.
So my question is for both of you. Obviously, you've had a lot of stops over the courses of your careers. Obviously, Coach Locksley, you've been at Illinois, you've been at Maryland a couple times, you were at New Mexico, at Bama. A lot of different thoughts have gone to those career decisions. You talked about New Mexico, really wanting to be a head coach, at Bama, wanting to learn from Saban. Obviously, here is home for you. And then for Dr. Singh, obviously, you worked in hospitality as a professor. For both of you, what would you say is your advice for career management and picking like your next stop and your next direction trajectory-wise?
I would start with saying do something that doesn't feel like a job. Like every day I pull in, when people they talk about the 8-game losing streak and the losses, I get to coach football for a living. That's not a job. Like I'm not looking for what time I'm getting off and when you have one of those, it's tough. And so find something that inspires you, that you love to do, that you can put passion behind and know that all you can do is your best. So I would say find something that you love. Don't take a job for money. Don't take it because, you think it's the best, it's the coolest job. Take it because it's something that inspires you, that motivates you.
I agree with him. I know the dean is sitting here, but I have to say this, that I sometimes am amazed that I get paid to do what I do. I do it for free also, but don't take it seriously. But one thing that's really worked for me is the word serendipity. When I started my career, I had a plan. And then I realized every time I had a plan, life had other plans. But interestingly, what I did was every time things changed around me and a new opportunity presented itself, instead of saying, this is not part of my plan, I'm not going to walk in that direction, I always explored that opportunity. Interestingly enough, even the times when I felt like I was stepping backwards, I was always moving forward. And in 5 years later, when I'd look back, I say, oh my God, I was moving forward. So serendipity. Don't give up on opportunities. Keep an open mind to things that are coming your way. Sometimes life leads you where you need to go to. Don't resist it. I never did. So I'm where I am.
And I just want to add that you can also take steps backwards to move forward. Because I was a head coach at New Mexico, got fired, went to Nick Saban's rehabilitation program, became in a cubicle again, but no job too big, no job too small. Take the lessons of the firing, rebuild, rebrand, and come out a better leader because of it. That failure is not final.
I love both the answers. What you're saying about the zig, we have a lot of advisory council members who talk about my path was not straight. It was this zigzag, and I took opportunities that I didn't know where would lead. And what you said about the purpose and meaning and the passion, and the whole meme program is built on people coming with different passions, who are in different undergrads, and just like showing that passions and earning a living can come together and are not contradictory, right? Seth.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming today. So when you say Baloo, I don't think a lot of people know what Baloo is, where you came from. My father actually graduated from Baloo as well too. He's a little bit older than you, but so I say whatever failure you think you may have had, you came from Baloo. You have a beautiful wife, 4 kids, and you're coaching Brown. So that's success. That's a win in itself. So, but I came from the era where I was a walk-on. There was no NIL when I played or anything. And so I played 4 years without a scholarship. And there's a lot of lessons learned, but I also have some coaches that during that time period were like father figures to me. I learned a lot from them. As a coach, being a leader and then raising kids, what are some qualities or some things that you take from parenthood to the field and then also from the field to your kids at home?
And that's so funny because the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that is I always refer to myself as Benjamin Button. Like I age backwards. I know I'm dressed funny up here. I got these tight pants with the dress pants, and well, I get to deal with 18 to 22-year-olds every day, and the age group doesn't change. Yeah. And if I saw Tom Brady come in as an 18-year-old and leave 54 years old, I would feel like I'm really, really old. And so, what I would say is that my energy comes from the 18 to 22-year-olds I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and you have to be able to do both. I went from dictatorship parenthood to negotiating with terrorists with my younger ones, and I go from 3 years ago, everybody got the same paycheck when they went to the window, to the next year, everybody's got a different paycheck, and little Billy wants to know why don't I have a Louis backpack? Why don't I have a Dodge Charger? And I got to explain to them, everybody has to cut their own deals, but I have to also teach and inspire them that you're going to gain some lessons. My biggest fear right now is I got players making $1 million a year in football because they have a window of opportunity to maximize their value. But what's going to happen in 4 years if I have 100 players, 95 of them don't go to the NFL, and now they got to take an entry-level job paying $100,000 a year? Like, I got to prepare them for that. I have to, which is why I've become part of the business school, and I'm trying to teach them about money, people that don't come from places where they understood the value of money. And so I got a lot of fishing to teach, and that's where using all the resources and villages that this great university offers gives me a chance to teach a lesson that allows me to get out of Ballou High School and be here as the head coach at Maryland.
Cool, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mahogany. I'm a first year in the MBA program. Took a similar leadership and teamwork and leadership course, and we talked about psychological safety on teams. I also have a little brother who's an assistant strength coach at Arkansas, and he also talks about that a lot with his players and getting into, coaching, athletic, the psychological safety of it all. So how did you talk more about that with your students and, about that psychological safety on teams?
I think it starts, I'll take this because this was one of our classes where my team knows my son Miko played college football, played for me at New Mexico, and then at 21 went from, as I say, a normal football playing to dealing with schizoaffective disorder, which is a sign schizophrenia. And now you go from a normal 21-year-old to this not even knowing the difference between reality and myth. And to see that just really scared me because I saw that before, but I didn't know what it was. And to not do anything now, so I immersed myself into, and you heard them talk about the importance of mental health is for me and my team. The psychological safety is super important because I'm dealing with first generation guys that came from Ballou High School that maybe never sat in a classroom of diversity for the first time ever. I'm dealing with guys that aren't used to, a lot of the firsts for them. And so how do I transition them onto this campus, allow them to create value for themselves because of a skill they have while still empowering them with the knowledge that college allows us to empower them with to be successful with or without the football. And that's me teaching them how to fish. So
I witnessed Coach being really vulnerable in front of our students. And I'm assuming he does the same with his team. And I've seen him do the same with the team, which then creates so much trust that if he's willing to expose himself so much, then he must trust me. And as a result, I think I can trust him back, which creates then the culture where there's a lot of psych safety, where people feel comfortable talking about their fears, their mistakes, and being open about it. So I witnessed it firsthand, him doing all of that. Yes.
Can I ask a question? So you have a certain value system, the way you run the football. I'm just making it up, but then you have others who also make decisions, expect to have a different outcome. Assume that you have to always win. And the question is all about filling up the stadium, right? How do you manage that friction if there is when?
Well, I used to worry about it a lot, Ding, but now once you bury a child, your give a crap gauge goes to E. And so it makes it a lot easier. That's why when I stand in front of people where I say I've done harder, well, nothing is tougher than burying a child because the circle of life isn't built for that. And what I would say is that it's really it's important that how you manage failure in public, because I'm modeling it all the time for my players, it's really important to manage failure. You have to be able to, what is success? And so I define it, and I always have, I said success is equal to production being greater or equal to expectations. And it's the ones we create in our building. And so every day, if you ever want to know if you had success or not, it's your production being greater than or equal to whatever the expectation that you create for the organization, for the team. And there's times in a game that you may not win on the scoreboard. I think the more you can show those small successes in the battles is what keeps the troops going. And I always say when the map and the terrain don't meet, go with the terrain. And that's where you figure out what's going on in the masses. You meet them where they are, and then you come up with a clear plan to get us out of it. Yeah.
Coach, I'm just let's.
Yes.
How about now? Yeah, Coach, I was just curious the difference between a coordinator and being a leader of leaders. Like, what is that role for you, having to lead other leaders and they're executing their jobs, but how are you mentoring them and leading them?
Yeah, I got to learn again from one of the best, and Nick Saban, and that our staff meetings is where I heard Kirk Signetti talk about it, and he's another disciple of Coach Saban. He was the receiver coach at Bama, and I heard great leaders coach the coaches. And so my job is to see all, but be able to coach those coaches. And the only way you can do it is to meet and go through. We call quality control every part of our business. So if we have a game on Sunday when they come in, I meet with the defensive staff and we quality control what happened. All right, we won. How did we do? How did we win? Why did we win? What worked? What didn't work? And then we start attacking those things and trying to model the consistency of what worked and fixing the problems. And so to me, when you QC every part of whether it's recruiting, offense, defense, special teams, fundraising, all the hats that you wear as a leader. You have to have mechanisms to quality control it and then make the corrections necessary. And that's where I spend all my time QCing everything we do to say, how can I add resources or model it to get the consistency in the result?
We take one last question. I know.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. So in the beginning, you mentioned habits, and I'm wondering from both of you, what are some of the habits that you think are most important that you try to instill in your players and your students, not only for success, but for their own kind of balance and well-being?
Yeah, I'll start because anytime you go into an organization, the first thing I did when I took the job over is I said, how do I want people to define Maryland football with me as a leader? And for me, I took the word TERPS and I made it an acronym, and it starts with toughness. Mental and physical toughness are required to be successful. Effort, everybody can give maximum effort. It takes no skill to try as hard as you can. A relentless mindset, which means we're going to chase the goal until we die. And not till we quit. We're going to chase it till we die. And then we're going to have the right kind of pride. And that's the one for the name on the front of the jersey, representing this great university, Maryland. And if you do those 4 things on a consistent basis, the S is for success. And that's the acronym for TERPS. If you walk in our building, you see it all over the place. You see words like maximize it. Maximize it comes from having a knock on the door at 3 a.m. and losing a child, and understanding now time is the most valuable commodity we have. And so I teach my players that immediately, that every minute is a piece of is a value, and we can't waste it. And so those are the things that they learn very early in my program.
I love that acronym. I'm just gonna stick with that for now. I think.
Hope it's not trademark. We can.
Yeah.
I want to invite a couple of the students to have a gift for you. And can you also please introduce yourself quickly and say who you are? There is another student, right?
Thank you so much, Coach. Oh, no. Hi, everyone. My name's Dash Tischler. I'm a senior here at UMD. I loved class. Coach Locksley and Dr. Singh are awesome. So, yeah.
You didn't pay him.
Inicia Porter, 6-year Air Force veteran, Master's Business Analytics students graduate in May. This is
Alana co-teaches it with me. She organizes it.
Alana has been a big part of this course, helping us coordinate and put everything together. But again, Coach Locks, my deepest gratitude for all that you do, and Alana for all the help that you've provided.
Thank you so much.
I have to go to my full-time job.